Welcome back. Today in this class, let's discuss how to formulate and define the research problem. So the topic which we are going to discuss today is formulating and defining the research problem. So first of all, we should study what is a research problem. What is a research problem? Research problem means it is a difficulty which a researcher experiences in context of a theoretical or practical situation and want to obtain a solution for the same. What is a research problem? Research problem is a difficulty a researcher experience. Now you are a researcher and I am also a researcher, and at this juncture I am facing a difficulty. That is the research problem. It refers to a difficulty which a researcher experiences in context of a theoretical or practical solution. Okay, you are facing a difficulty in a theoretical or practical solution and you want to obtain a solution for the same. That is the research problem. What is a research problem? A research problem is a difficulty that a researcher experiences in context of a theoretical or practical solution and you want to obtain a solution for the same. That is a research problem. Hope you're clear. What is a research problem? It is a difficulty which a researcher experiences in context of a theoretical or practical solution and want to obtain a solution for the same. Next is the components of a research problem. You are selecting a research problem and what are the things to be present in the research problem. In selecting a research problem, the following components should be present. The following components is first is an individual or group which has some difficulty or the problem. There should be an individual X or Y. There should be an individual who has some difficulty or the problem. That is the first component. There should be an individual or group which has some difficulty in the problem. Next is he should have some objectives. There should be some objectives to be attained, and if you don't have any objectives you can't solve any problem. So first we need a individual or group which has some difficulty of the problem. Second is we should have some objectives to be obtained. Without objectives we can't solve any problem. Then there should be some alternate means for finding out the objectives. For obtaining the objective there should be some alternate means to solve the problem. You should have two or more means for finding out the problem, and always there should be some doubt inside us so that we will be finding the answer. Whenever I hope now you are clear. You are planning to do a research and so many questions, doubts are arising in you. That is the research problem, and there must be some environment to which the difficulty pertains. So the environment also pertains some difficulty in it. So what are the various components of a research problem? The various components are, first is there should be an individual or group which has some difficulty to the problem. Then you should have some objectives to find out the problem. Without objectives you can't solve a problem. Then for finding out the objective you should have some alternate means. If you are not able to work in one way, you should do in an alternate way to find out the problem. And always there should have some doubt in your mind to find out the problem, and also the environment should be there in which the difficulty passes. So I hope you are clear what is research problem and what are the components of a research problem. Next, how to select the problem. What type of problem can be selected? So you should not select a problem which is overdone. A subject which is overdone should not be chosen, because it can be done very easily. So the subject which is overdone should not be taken. In controversial subject, if the subject is very controversial, that also cannot be chosen for an average researcher. First, you should not take a subject which is overdone. Second, controversial subject should not be taken by a average researcher, and you should not take too narrow problems or too vague problems. Okay, you should not take too narrow or too vague problems, and the subject selected should be familiar and feasible. The topic you are selected should be familiar or feasible, so that you can collect the research material easily. Okay, what are the points? Then what are the points? First, it should not be overdone, it should not be controversial, it should not be too narrow or too vague. Then it should be very familiar and feasible. The subject selected for the study should be familiar and feasible for you. I hope nowadays you are choosing subjects based on your optional subjects and also based on your practice school. Why we have given an option like that? Because you should be very familiar and also you should be feasible with the subject. So if you are feeling some difficulty in the problem, what you can do, you can get your ideas from the researcher, that idea from a guide, your professor, and you can read so many articles. You can think of, not only you can read the article, you can think of so many ideas. Then the ideas you can discuss with others, and all this will be help you to make a select a problem. The importance of the subject, what is the importance of that topic you are choosing, then what's the qualification of your trainer, what are the cost involved, time factor, everything should be made while you are selecting the research problem. Okay, so while you are selecting the research problem, you should not take the subject which is overdone, you should not take the controversial subject, you should not take too narrow or too vague problems. The subject should be very familiar and feasible, so that you can do the research in a very clear manner. For this you can discuss with the researcher, you can read the articles and you can discuss, you can think of yourself, and you should think of the qualities, that is qualification and training of the researcher, the cost involved, time factor, etc. And you should ask yourself the following question: whether his equipped in terms of his background to carry out the research. While you are doing it, selecting a topic, you think whether you have the background, you are equipped with the background to carry out the research. Just think of whether you are equipped with the background. Actually, you should need some things. You have to collect the literature, you have to collect the things, we have to do the work, whether you are equipped with the background to carry out the research. Next, you should think whether the study falls in the budget. Okay, you will have a particular amount of money to be spent, whether you have the sufficient money. Then you should think whether you will be getting cooperation from the people surrounding you for doing the study. So before defining your problem, you should think of whether you are equipped with the background to carry out the research, whether the study falls within the budget, and also you should think whether you will be getting cooperation from the people who are participating in the study. Then you can, if the questions are answered, you can proceed with the research problem. And finally, while selecting the research problem, what we can do is we can do a preliminary study. So preliminary study is not needed if we have studied, closely related studies have been already done. Okay, the study, the selection of problem need a preliminary study. When we does not need a preliminary studies, if similar studies have been already conducted. If similar studies have not been already conducted, you should do a preliminary study and proceed with your study. So what are the things you should see while selecting a problem? Can you list out? So while selecting a research problem, overdone subject should not be taken. Then controversial subjects should not be taken, too narrow or too vague problems should not be taken. The researcher should be familiar and feasible with the subject. Importance of the subject, qualification of the researcher, training, everything will be think out. Then we should see whether we are well be equipped with the background to carry out the research. Then you have to think about the budget, and you should think whether you'll be getting the necessary cooperation. And the problem selected should be followed by a preceded by a preliminary study. Preliminary study is not needed if we have already a closer similar study already done. Okay. Next, what is the necessity of defining the problem? Actually, we have to define the problem very clearly, so it will help us to collect the relevant data. Okay, why we have to define the problem? The problem should be defined clearly, so it will be help us to collect the relevant data from the irrelevant one. It will help us to collect the relevant data. If you are defining your problem in a correct way, you can collect only the things needed. You will be omitting the unneeded one, that is the irrelevant one. So you should ask of the following question: what data to be collected, what characters of the data to be collected, what relations to be studied, what techniques to be studied. Okay, so what is the necessity of defining the problem? The necessity of defining the problem help us to collect the relevant data than the irrelevant one. So you should have this following questions: what data to be collected, what characters of the data to be collected, what relations to be studied, and what techniques to be studied, and you can find out the answers. So defining the problem is very important, and formulation of problem is also very important. So we'll be having a lot of steps in doing the same, defining the problem and formulating the research problem. So what are the techniques involved in defining a problem? There are certain techniques involved in defining the problems. The various techniques in defining a problem is: first is stating the problem in a general way. Okay. Second is understanding the nature of the problem. Next, survey the available literature. Next, you have to develop the idea through discussion and rephrase the research problem into a working proposition. Okay. What are the techniques involved in defining a problem? You have to state the problem in a general way, understand the nature of the problem, survey the available literature, develop the idea through discussion, research problem into working proportion. So first thing is stating the problem in a general way. So first you are stating the problem in a general way, broad way, based on your interest. So the stating the in a general way, you are doing in a broad way, like based on your interest, area of interest. You are stating your problem in a general way based on the practical concern and intellectual interest. You should be involved, immersed in the problem, and you should have some observations on that area. And for example, you can state the problem. You're going to do your work in pharmaceutical chemistry, pharmacognosy, pharmacology, and which area? For example, anti-cancer work. That's a broad area. Anti-cancer work is the broad area. General way you are telling, I am going to do a work in cancer studies. Okay, that is the broad area. That broad area you should think of, you should make sure, and you should rethink of, and you should work out. In the broad area, you have formulating anti-cancer drug, or you are evaluating, pharmacologically evaluating, or you are synthesizing an anti-cancer drug. So here the problem generally stated is the general area is anti-cancer work, and again you have a thinking, you have working in zootex, cognosy, ecology based on that. That is your problem statement in a general way. So you should state the problem in a general way. For that you should immerse yourself and you can state the problem in a general way. You can give an example. Next is you should understand the nature of the problem. So next, the important thing is you have to understand the nature of the problem. For understanding the nature of the problem, you should have some objectives. Initially, what the broad area I have chosen, the broad area chosen is anti-cancer studies. Anti-cancer studies, either pharmacological evaluation, formulation, or synthesis in a synthetic way. Like that's the broad area. Next, I have to understand the nature of the problem. If it is cancer, just imagine if it is cancer, we have so many type of cancer of the breast, cancer of the uterus, cancer of prostate, cancer of head, cancer of lungs, cancer of various organs. We have cancer. So you should understand the nature of the problems. What are the problems associated with cancer? It is associated with the mutation. So many drugs are available, drugs are there. Then what I have to do? That problem you should understand. Next, what you can do is you should survey the available literature. You have so many literatures available. Already we have discussed 6 hours spent in the library can save a person 6 months in a laboratory. So you have to survey all the available literature to get the theoretical knowledge and also the practical knowledge, and that will help you to narrow down the research. So this literature survey will help narrow your research to find out on one area, either the research in the breast cancer or in ovarian cancer or liver cancer. Likewise, you can narrow your research. Then you can develop the idea through discussion. You can discuss with your guide. You can discuss with people who have a vast experience. You can discuss with people who gave you an idea. Sometimes some people may have given you an idea for doing the research. To those people also you can discuss, and if the problem have arise from yourself, if you have had your problem by yourself, you can think of, you can refer a lot of literatures and you can develop the idea. And after that, what you have to do is you should rephrase the research problem. Finally, you will be rephrasing the research problem. How you will be rephrasing? Initially, we have planned to do a work in cancer. Then we have confined our area to which cancer, I'm not sure. If it is breast cancer, well and good. So you are defining your narrowing to a breast cancer. Next, you have to rephrase. You have to think whether you are going for in vitro studies, in vivo studies, whether you are using cell line studies or you are using some alternate method. So the working proposition you should rephrase, okay, based on the literatures, based on the discussion done with various person. You should rephrase your research problem. So what are the various steps involved, in techniques involved in defining the research problem? You have to state the problem in a general way, understand the nature of the problem. You should make thorough literatures, develop ideas, then rephrase your research problem. Then you should think about the following terms while you are defining a research problem. The following terms are the technical terms. It should be clearly defined. You should make some assumption, and you should have a forward statement for the value of investigation. You should check about the time period, and you should go for the scope of the investigation or the limitation of the investigation. So what you should think after that, you should think of the technical terms or phrases, assumption, then a forward statement, time period, and scope and limitation. Now let's have an illustration. Actually, I have given you a illustration regarding the topic relevant to our subject, that is a broad area is anti-cancer. Then what you have doing in anti-cancer, you will be having so many doubts, like whether it is a breast cancer or ovarian cancer or liver cancer, lung cancer, head or neck. So we'll be having a lot of problem. Again, if we'll be having so many doubts whether you should go for in vitro studies, in vivo studies, using cell lines. So the problems should be defined very clearly. Likewise, you can write evaluation of anti-cancer activity or so and so for this cancer by in vitro studies. If you are giving in a broad way, like anti-cancer activity evaluation, you'll be having so many doubts. So what we are doing, you are thinking, rethinking, rephrasing, and finally you are making a very clear definition of the problem that will be giving you a clear topic. It will be explaining your objectives also. Likewise, another one illustration from the textbook, that is Kothari textbook. They have given an example. They have given an example in a broad way. I hope this example is not needed while writing your for your exam. You can give an illustration in correlation with your subject, like pharmaceutics, pharmacology, a broad way explanation and also a general way explanation. And here the example is why productivity in Japan is so much higher than in India. So they have given a research problem in a general way. What's the general way of the research problem? Why productivity in Japan is higher than in India. So we have so many doubts here. What sort of productivity? Okay. So many type of productivities are there. So what type of productivity is referred? With what industries the same is related? Then what's the period of productivity? So we have to think about this. Here in the question, it is not mentioned what type of productivity with what industry, and the time period is not mentioned. So they are redefining the question. How? What factors were responsible for higher productivity, labor productivities of Japan's manufacturing industries during the decade 1971 to 1980 related to India's manufacturing industries? So first they have given a broad area. Why is productivity in Japan is so much higher? Then they have redefined the question. What factors are responsible? Okay. Then they have selected the time period also. Then another one question. Then further they have defined the question. To what extent the labor productivity in 1971 to 80, the period is mentioned, in Japan exceed that of India in respect of 15 selected manufacturing industries. So they have selected only 15 manufacturing industries, and that 15 manufacturing industries, how it is better, easier. So here the last question is comparatively easier for doing. So you have to define your problem in such a way that it should be able to do in a particular time period. Hope you're clear about the defining your problem. Okay. Next is formulation of the research problem. So it is also based on defining the research problem. Formulating the research problem make you to enable the research in a particular clear way. There are 5 ways to formulate the research problem. That is, specify your objectives. What are the things you have to do? Then you should think of the environment. You have to explore the nature and also alternative approaches. Okay, this thing you can make it clear. Actually, this 5 ways is, first you have to specify your research objectives. What is the research objective? What is your aim? What you want to do? I have to what is your objective? For example, I am working in cancer. My objective is to find out an anti-cancer drug for breast cancer. That is my objective, based on in silico, in vitro, in vivo methods. Then review the context. You will be going for a thorough review of literature. Then I will be exploring its nature, how the study can be conducted, what are the facilities available. For in vitro studies, I need cell lines. If it is breast cancer, I need MC of 7 cell lines. The saline should be inoculated in vitro, whether that facilities are available in our lab, or I have to contact some other research lab like RGCB, that is Rajigandhi Center for Biotechnology. Then I have to think whether the money is sufficient for me to do, that is the review, explore the nature. Next, determine the variable relationship. What are the variable relationship, like what are the problems under that, the variables and relationship, that is what how it is feasible, whether in vitro antimitotic activity can be done. The antimitotic activity using onion I can do in the lab itself. That variable relationship I should think of, and the alternate approaches. If I can not do like this, whether I can go for animal experiments, the alternate approaches. So the formulating the research problem, you should think of the ways, your objectives you should think of. You should conduct, review your conducts, explore the nature, determine the variable, and also alternate approaches. Again, the basic steps already what we have studied. Again, we are listing out under formulating the research problem, defining and formulating the research problem. You can expand, elaborate what we have already discussed, that is identify the broad area. Then you have to subdivide the broad area into sub areas. Mark up your interest. You can't do a study which is not of not at all if you are not interested. For example, I am interested to do a pharmacology study, so I can't do an synthetic work in chemistry. That is your interest. You should study the research question. You should go through various research questions, set out your objectives, assess your objectives, and check back. You first check the objectives. Initially you may have so many questions like I will be doing this much level, then you will be thinking I have only limited time, 6 months time, whether I am able to find complete all my box. So then you are assess your objectives and check back. Okay, now coming to the conclusion. So defining the research problem, it's not an easy task. You have to define the problem, then define the problem in a general way. Then you have to make sure all the ambiguities. You should think, rethink, and it results in the formulation of problem. So the problem you defined, it should be capable for the development of working hypothesis for solving the problem. So you should define the problem in a general way, then you should think, rethink in a specific way in terms of available data, resources, and you should be able to develop on to work out on the working hypothesis for solving the problem. I hope you're clear what is a research problem, what are the components of a research problem, how to select the problem, what is the necessity of defining the problem, what are the techniques involved in defining the problem, points to be considered while defining the problem, then how to formulate the research problem and the steps involved. I hope you're clear. So how will be defined the research problem as it requires a sequential pattern. The problem should be explained in a general way. You should think, rethink, so that you can come into a way. It should be available in the data, based on the available data, resources, and you should pave the way for the development of working hypothesis and for solving the problem in itself. Hope you're clear. Thank you.